Welcome to Laugh, Cry, or Die. This is a comedy disability podcast hosted by two people who have disabilities and comedy at the same time. Shocking, shocking behavior from the pair of us. My name is Steve Wilbury, and with me, as always, is Naomi Strain.
Hello.
We are here to just have a chat and be disabled for the next bit. If you're listening, you can listen to us chat about being disabled and how horrible and vicious life is, and the vague cruelties of the universe as we wail and gnash our teeth like Shakespearean monkeys.
Welcome to us whinging and moaning and being depressed and miserable. If you're having a really good week, let us put a stop to that. Stop having a nice life.
Well, I don't. There's always because there's the thing that if you have a nice or if you have a bad life, then you can listen to our lives and be like, well, it could always be worse. Because the thing is,
Yeah.
with I know a guy who works in the Gaza Circus Center. I could be him. So
Yeah. We need to get him on to talk about how depressing his life is to give us a little bit of a boost.
yeah,
And
and then
actually,
we'll
I think
be like,
I would take if we got maybe instead of guests with disabilities, and talking about the struggles, we
hmm,
need to get people on who have perfect lives, people who are extremely optimistic, who have no problems, and see if we can break them.
that's the podcast. It's only taken us 40 episodes to crack the formula.
Yeah, let's start on a trail of destruction, I think.
I like the idea of taking someone, or like, what if we got someone who was like ableist, that like you should be able to do XYZ because and we
Mhm.
can then we break them. Because like a normal normie who's not like mean, I don't want to make him sad.
Just a little bit sad.
Just a little bit sad. I mean,
Yeah.
I spent the last 4 days doing magic at Kilburn Garden Party here, which is
Oh,
brilliant.
nice.
It's this castle from the 1500s, and they got a famous graffiti artist to do a massive mural on the side of this like 500-year-old castle. And it's this enormous 2,500-acre estate, and there's glens, and because it's such an old estate, there's like stuff that people built in like 1700s for a laugh, with like a bunch of little fairy glen, and there's all these random little
Oh,
bits just scattered
nice.
around.
What's the
um
name for that when people build that? Is it a folly?
I folly, yeah, that's it, yeah, follies. So there was like a little a witch's cottage and a tea cave and all these little bits and bobs that have just accreted over the centuries.
That sounds like the perfect place for a bunch of carny folk and circus goers to be.
It's more of a music festival than a circus festival, but there's like, a circus like current running through it for sure. Um,
Yeah.
but I got to do my favorite sport, which is magic for munters.
Okay.
Do you know what a munter is?
I know what a munter is. I don't know
Okay.
why they need specific magic category.
Because you go out and you do magic for munters, and magic for normal people, you can really surprise them and you can shock them and blow their minds.
Right.
Someone who's fucked on like three handfuls of mushrooms and whatever powders he's found, if you break reality in front of their faces, you can send them insane.
You wouldn't have to do anything particularly magical. You could do
Yeah,
the most
exactly.
basic of shit tricks, which
Yeah,
is most of your act.
just basic and a bit shit, and they still love it. Although one thing that I did get booked on for at this festival was the magical mystery tour. So they have a little bus that goes around the festival site, and it's not a bus; it's really just you sit in the back of a ute, and one of these buses once a day turns into the magical mystery tour, and you think you're going off to a field, and then instead you're just driven off on a random adventure through the site. And then we do stops and like look at bits that people don't normally get to see, and then me and my friend Matt would do some magic and entertain everyone, and then we'd pile in and we'd lose some people and get some more, and it was brilliant. It was great fun.
That sounds like great fun.
That was actually really, really, really nice. um And then, but the other thing that I didn't get to do this festival that I really want, and this is the best festival idea I've heard for a long time, is there's a secret restaurant. And last year they had a Michelin star chef come, and if you somehow get a ticket to the secret restaurant, you get a free 5-course tasting menu. So you're like in the middle of a field, and then you get whisked away to the castle randomly. And like there was a friend who was on a team, and he was just like sitting down, and someone got chatting, and they're just, oh, you seem nice. Here, have a ticket to the secret restaurant. That's the only way to get it, is just from fairies who float around.
That's amazing. That's like a
Mm.
secret elitist sort of club. That's yeah, I love that.
But I love the fact that it's elitist, but there's no predicate on it. It's completely random.
Yeah, you can't work towards it. You can't try and find out. It's just complete luck
It's
of the draw.
just, yeah, just some, every once in a while you get something fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I imagine the person responsible for like going and finding
Oh
guests.
my God, I would pay money for that job, to like
It'd be
hunt
so
down
nice.
the people for the dinner parties.
Yeah. Then you could get a big group of lovely people you invite, and then a couple of real assholes, like lovely hippie festival goers, and then a
Mm.
massive racist, and put them in the mix. Like, that'd be back to again ruining people's happiness. Um, wouldn't that be fun to just throw some really nasty people in the mix? I'd watch that TV show. A really vocal racist at a dinner party.
That's just the title. It's just a vocal racist at a dinner party.
Racist dinner party, yeah.
There's a demographic that would definitely buy into racist dinner party. I reckon in the South you'd do well.
Yeah. I mean, I'd watch it. I don't know how I'd feel about going to the dinner party.
What about just being racist? Have you considered racism, Naomi, as an option?
I've considered it, but it goes against a few of my, general day-to-day things. Decided it's not for me.
Not
Fair
for you.
play to those who want to go down that route. For those who follow that, that's up to them. It's not for me.
I looked at racism and I said, you know what? I'll pass.
It's not my lifestyle choice.
No, no, I don't identify as a racist.
And if you're racist, turn this off. Get off.
Yeah, go away, you stinky
Listen.
racist.
Yeah,
Don't like you can be
unless
on
you
a
want to
telly
come
show,
in.
but not our show.
Yeah, we'll employ you, but we won't be your friend.
And we'll be really mean in HR.
Sorry, that's the postman. Postman's just delivered something, and I have no idea what I've ordered.
Vibrator, 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 vibrator.
Quite a big package.
I believe in you, Naomi. You can do it.
All right, I'll give
And
it a try.
I reckon if you put it, mind you, you could cram a chair up your hoo-ha.
Again.
Speaking of deliveries, we got something delivered today, which I think is kind of interesting. It's not really disability talk, but it's still kind of like mental health adjacent stuff.
Hmm.
So Lewis, the boy, has been struggling a bit since we left New Zealand with his anxiety because things are changing, things are different. It's
Hmm.
noisier. He's never seen more than 1,000 people in one place, and he spent 12 days in Japan, and then
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the really loud, and it's just really overwhelming for all of the senses, and he's quite sensitive. So I signed him up for this thing from America. It's a little heart rate monitor, and you wear it, and then they get you to say play a video game that's a bit stressful. And then when your
Yeah.
heart rate goes up, you have to stop playing the video game and use your breathing techniques and your mindfulness and stuff to bring your heart rate back down. And you see how doing these things you don't think does anything really does actually make a difference to your body.
Love that. Love that.
Um,
That's a tangible,
yeah,
tangible
so it's like
measurable thing.
it's proper biofeedback.
Mm,
So you can
that's
be like,
awesome.
yeah, and I think it'll work for him because he's clever and it makes sense, because it's hard when you're like, just focus on your breathing, but you're not feeling anything. But if like intellectually, there's a bridge
Yeah,
that
yeah.
gets crossed, I
Well,
think.
I remember a few years ago back when I was in my massive overdosed by them
Mm.
phase. And this one morning I'd got up and I'd taken my medication. And then within 20 minutes, I went blind and couldn't walk properly. And like I said, this is when they really over medicated me
Mm.
and got into this panic because I hadn't gone blind at that point, previously. So this was the first time that happening. And it
It
sent me,
does, yeah, it would be a bad situation, the whole not
yeah,
seeing.
yeah. And like my dad was here then, and he was in the bathroom, and I was like, Dad, Dad, like a child. I was like, Dad, and he came out, and I was like kneeling in the lounge and like couldn't say anything apart from like, I can't see, I can't see. And I hadn't had my medical arm for long, which I'm not wearing. Um, and he was like, should I press the button? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, okay, I'll press the button. So he pressed it, and St. John turned up. And um, I was lying on the lounge floor because I like couldn't walk properly.
Mm.
My dad had put a pillow under my head, and I was lying there, and I was like properly freaking out. And I just remember the paramedics saying, okay, like take some deep breaths and calm down. And he said to them, I know all the things, but it's not helping, like mid panic. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's not that. It's not that. It's because I can't see. It's because of the drugs. It's not because I'm panicking whilst in the middle of a massive panic attack. And so knowing it logically didn't help. It's like, oh,
Mm.
I remember the books I've read and the self-help and all
Mm.
that. It meant nothing because I was already in the panic. So
Mm.
having something that you can actually look at and focus on, that you can tell yourself you're not panicking, but then you look at the numbers and go, oh yeah, I am panicking.
Mm.
It's outside of you to focus on. I love
Mm.
that.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we literally just arrived in the post today, so I'm interested to see how it works because I hadn't really because he was getting a bit anxious before we left, and I hadn't really and I thought that it was anxious about not knowing what it would be like, and I thought once we were there and we were doing it, he'd be fine. But we got there, and what it was really scary. Yeah, but I think that part of this trip that we're taking, people are always like, "Oh, what about his school and his education?" I'm like, "What do you think I'm doing?" He knows
Mm,
he's been, seeing his parents learn navigating a foreign city using just their phones and figuring out how to get to places and learning to manage your anxiety and seeing the world and how other people live and how cultures work. It's like, duh.
yeah, yeah, because he's already a clever kid. So
Mm,
he doesn't need to be sat in a classroom doing book learning,
mm,
which works for some people, but having neurodivergent kid, it's not necessarily the best or easiest place for him to learn. Having those life skills is really, really important. I was saying about accessibility and
mm.
stuff like that in this country, and there's certain things that we expect with accessibility. I've been looking a lot over, like, I'm not in a wheelchair, but I've been reading a lot about the sort of things that people in wheelchairs face in other countries. It's specifically saying Japan. Have there been measures in place?
There were a lot of steps in Japan.
Like the things that I'm thinking are like when you hit a pedestrian crossing and you have the beeping, so that if
Mm.
you're
Yeah,
you
no,
hear the
there
beeping.
was they had like buttons that you could press to make sure that it was an audio cue that came up to let you come across, and they had like the little ribbles on the floor next to the pedestrian crossing so you could know where it is and stuff. And I think it is a they do have a pretty decent, and I did see quite a lot of people in wheelchairs actually, now that I think about it. And I think that's just because of a larger population base. There's just going to be more people in wheelchairs in general.
Right, right,
Um,
yeah.
Although having said that, not as many people as I saw in wheelchairs in America, where they're all fat.
Yeah,
Not to
fat
not
people
to
in
be
wheelchairs.
ableist about obesity,
Yeah, yeah.
but that's the here's a disability hot button issue. So right, we can't do anything about our brokennesses. So I think we legitimately get a disability badge. Someone who is morbidly obese who needs a cart to go around Disney, which is like 40% of the population at Disney World in
Right,
America.
yeah.
Like I got one of those little carts because I can't walk all day because my fucking back is broken. And there's loads of other people with these carts just tooling around. It was like Wally, and there's just all these big fat guys just like bloop, 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 going around. But if you're a big fat cunt and you don't do anything about it, are you disabled or are you just a twat who won't exercise?
I would put that in the ableist camp because you don't know the reasons for them being big, whether
Mm,
that's health issues, medications, um, anxieties, depressions. That there are
mm,
many reasons that people get big, specifically very, very obese.
Mm.
But if you've got, like, say, just on your figure that you threw out there, like, say, 40%, that can't all be because
Mm.
of reasons, you
Yeah.
know?
There's going to be a
Sometimes,
few that are just big fat cats.
yeah, yeah, and like society-wise, say with food portions, if you look at 40 years ago, what an average portion size was, say at McDonald's,
Mm.
like if you look at a picture comparison of a burger then to a burger now,
Mm.
it's like it's kind of no surprise that this capitalist society that is buy, spend money, consume.
Mm.
It's not surprising that there are lots of fatter people.
It was interesting that one of the things I did notice in Japan is that it is more consumerist still in a way that I think, I mean, to be fair, I didn't really get to know a lot of Japanese people and get deep into society, but there's more stores with more stuff and people have more things, seemingly,
Right,
you know?
sort of
Like,
needless, frivolous type
yeah,
spending.
just little
Mm.
dude. There's more little doodads and capture machines, little capsule toy machines, and you can get stuff out. And like, there's always a reason just to be spending a little bit to get a cool thing. And there is a lot of cool stuff there.
I suppose it's like in, say, in casinos in Vegas that like even have fruit machines or pokies, whatever you call them,
Mm.
in the lifts and on stairwells
Oh my
and in the
God.
bathroom. And it's like if there's an opportunity to squeeze a money making thing into a corner or as
Mm.
you're passing by, it's like, yeah, everything's try and get your money off you. And it's easy to spend, like when you're feeling a bit sad.
Mm.
Spending does give you that dopamine boost. Like I just had a parcel delivery. I think it's gloves, but
Ooh,
it's in quite a big
gloves.
package. It's in quite a big package, and so maybe accidentally, instead of gloves, I've ordered some of those big foam fingers. Maybe I got them instead.
I think you
you
should
know,
do all of your cleaning wearing the big foam fingers.
oh, they'd be like sponges.
Yeah, you could totally
That'd be
put some of the green stuff, like the green scratchy stuff on it, and you could use it to do dishes.
it'd make cleaning so much more fun.
Totally.
Again, justifying any reason for spending. It's like,
Mm.
yes, I need those big foam fingers because then I'll do my cleaning quicker.
You know what is my favorite way to blow people's minds in the United Kingdom at the minute? Telling people that we don't have Amazon in New Zealand or eBay. And they kind of
Yeah,
go, "What?"
yeah. Because when I say like, oh yeah, I was looking on Trade Me, and in other
Mm.
countries they're like, excuse me, what is Trade Me? And it's
Mm.
like, "Yeah, we don't use eBay like the rest of the world because we're in the arse end of nowhere." And say if you're looking at Amazon, like, yeah, they will deliver here, but
Mm.
if you're buying, say, a $40 item, you'll pay $70 in shipping.
Exactly. Which is why everything
Ridiculous.
in the country costs so much. It's stupid.
Yeah.
It really should just build a land bridge between San Francisco and New Zealand. I think that's the smartest option.
Yeah, because if we all club together and put what we would have spent on postage and shipping, if
Mm.
we all
Yeah.
club together, we could probably buy a tunnel or a
Yeah. And it would
bridge.
only take like 3 days to drive across the Pacific Ocean, I'm sure.
Yeah, pull your finger out, government.
Jeez.
Ooh, talking
What
about the government.
go on what they do
Mm,
now?
yeah. So our wonderful right-wing, selfish government have added another thing in that makes me angry. Huh. So when you build or rent an apartment, there has to be
Mhm.
a minimum floor requirement size. You
Oh,
know.
so like if you build a flat, it has to be at least big enough for a person to live in.
Yes, yeah. So they're scrapping that. So you don't need to have a minimum floor space, which means that apparently the reason for doing that is, some people who are like traveling on business or students or this sort of thing, they only
Mm.
want somewhere small. And having the minimum floor size means that you can't build these tiny little spaces for a student to live in. You have to have a decent amount of space.
Mm.
So they're like, oh, we can have smaller ones. It's fine. Which means that if you're, say, developing somewhere, you can cram a lot more people in and get a lot more money, which
Mm.
means that people who are in wheelchairs or who have specific needs that need space to get out of their wheelchair into their
Mm.
bed or need a bathroom that's big enough that they can actually get into a shower, with their chair, or if they have a relative who's in a wheelchair that wants to come and visit them, all those people are going to be looking for places to live that are completely inaccessible. And it's like you have to have basic accessibility for spaces that the public are going to use, public even being renting a place. Like, how can they expect, a developer, say if you can put 3 apartments on a place rather than 2, you're going to put 3 because you're
But
going
what
to
you're
get more money.
forgetting, Naomi, is that the rich people aren't as rich as they could be, and you're stopping them making more money. So maybe,
I'm the selfish one.
yeah, maybe have a look in the mirror and think about what you think, you dirty, filthy peasant.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they could just take money directly out of the pocket of people in wheelchairs. That'd be easier.
That would be. I mean, they can't really
Yeah.
stop you because they're in wheelchairs and they're stuck in the bathroom. So you could just nick their wallets. I think that's the long term plan. Is they're going to get all these people into 2 small flats, they get stuck in the bathroom, and then the government's just going to come in and nick their stuff.
Go to the kitchen, help yourself to the food, sit
Yeah.
and watch your TV. What do
And they're
people
like,
in
"Can you help me,
wheelchairs do?
sir?" And they're like, "No, I can't."
Pay me, and I'll let you out the bathroom. Oh,
There's a $10 escape from the bathroom fee for the new disability services.
it's terrible though, right? Because like
Yeah.
they say, supply and demand and everything, but if all you're supplying is inaccessible places, then yeah, the demand for small spaces, or anywhere to live
Well,
is gonna,
there's nowhere to live in the whole country because
one of the things that the bloody minister said was, well, people want these small spaces. There's people currently living in cars and tents, as though homelessness is proof that people are happy to live in small spaces. Like, how can you justify the country's housing shortage by saying, well, people are in cars and tents and they're fine? Like, what the fuck?
we were there 15 years ago. We went to the kind of same area of the city, and at that time there were quite a few tents lined up along this riverside, and they had clothes hung up outside. And these people all had jobs, but they couldn't afford a place to stay in Tokyo.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they have gradually pushed these guys further and further out to the edges of the city. And Japan says that there are no homeless people in it, but there
Right.
are. But they like
Yeah,
to say, and they
yeah.
also say there's no drug addiction problem. And
Right.
it's very like, I saw a really good YouTube video of this young lady who was just talking to one of the guys who he was working in a he was living in a tent and working at a real estate agent's, and he couldn't make enough money to pay the rent, even though he worked in the company that did the real estate.
Wow. Well, that's terrible, eh?
Mm. And
It's the more,
it's only getting worse. Like the prices of food and everything has skyrocketed. Like
yeah, yeah.
I talked to my friend of mine who has a friend who had looked back through their like online shopping orders to like 3 4 years ago, and their food bill's gone up 400% in
Wow.
2 years.
It's crazy. It's like, yeah, I know doing my online shop, it tells you how many items are in your
Mm,
card. And for a normal, amount, you can maybe have 40 items. And it's, in the last 2 years, it's now that would be down to 30 items.
mm,
And like looking at, you get again the YouTubes and TikToks of people doing comparison shops, and they're like, this is what I got for $100, and it's not even a basket of food.
mm.
It's crazy. And it is that sort of rich poor divide is obviously getting bigger and bigger. And it seems the
Well,
more money somewhere has, like if the government or country or whatever has more money, it really seems to push that so much more. Like when I was in Morocco and went to Agadir, and Agadir is it's big and it's spendy, and it's went from living on a beach to staying in the city, and it's like the streets are paved with gold and you've got air conditioning and all the shops and that kind of thing. And literally on one of the main streets there's billboards advertising like Cartier watches and that sort of stuff. And if you look between the billboards, there's a proper slum city
mm.
behind, and like you're saying, with clothes hanging out and tents and that sort of thing. And it's, classic muddy ground and dusty children and all that. And it's literally behind the billboards have been put up because we don't want to look at them. We don't want to look at the
Oh,
poor
right.
people.
When we went to Disney in Los Angeles, Lewis picked up a vomiting bug on the plane because he always gets sick when we fly.
Mm.
And on the way into Disney, he ends up puking in the bushes because he's got a vomiting bug. And I'm kind of like taking care of it. And I'm getting ready to leave. And this guy comes up, flips open a Disney security badge. He's an undercover Disney guy, and he's got like the little earpiece in. And he's like, "Is your guy okay? There's a nurse here if you need any help." And directly across the street, there was a woman begging with a young boy, younger than Lewis, like three or four, who was just running around being a kid and laughing and had no concept that he was out with his mom begging for food because they were that poor. But because we were walking into Disney and looked like we had money, we were offered support and medical stuff. And literally across the street was this woman begging. It was, and the happiest place on earth, you know, and that kid will almost certainly never see the inside of Disney.
Yeah, yeah. So you can access the happiest place on earth, but it all depends on your social standing and the money in your pocket.
It is, and it's I was talking to Lewis a lot about like the real late stage capitalism that America is in at the minute, and it's really teetering.
Mm.
And like, you know, Trump got in because people were unhappy and had genuine complaints about the unfairness of the system. And you had one candidate going, "Yeah, everything's great. Look how good the stock market is." And another guy going, "You're getting fucked." And everyone's like, "Yeah, we're getting fucked." And then they voted him
Yeah.
in. And then you
Well,
had
that's
Trump
what
supporters.
I I know that every internet thing comes back to Hitler, but
Mm,
it's like, he got into power because you finish World War I and you go, oh crap, we're a shit country and we haven't got money and everything's a bit bad. And then a guy comes along and went, oh, I'll give you a hand. I can make things nice. And
mm.
people are like, really? You can make us proud and financially viable and happy again? And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's just a few things we need to do, and then everything will be great. And he went,
I'm,
and he's like, all we need to do is kill the Jews. Pardon, Hitler? Pardon? What was that bit? Oh no, no, you're all
no,
going
no,
to have money.
strengthen the
And just,
company, strengthen the country, and and
just
then
kill.
just
Yeah, and it's like, look, here's a bag of money. Do you want it? Yeah, yeah, I'd like the bag of money, please. Ooh, to kill Jews.
it's
Did you hear? Did you hear what Hitler just said? Did
I
you?
said something. I'm very proud right now. I'm quite proud. And you know what? I think there's another group that have caused the problems I'm suffering from.
Have you heard about the gypsies? Oh no, they will chuck them in as well. You'd be fucked, wouldn't you?
And you know, I saw, you know how J.K. Rowling is a howling transphobe now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, so before Hitler got into power, Germany was one of the first countries really researching trans people and trans health and how trans stuff
Yes.
worked. And they
Yeah.
burnt all the books in the trans health
Well, no.
library.
On that with like Dr. Mengele, he's my favorite Nazi because he was mental. So he was the doctor who did all the,
Also, yeah, the
racial
bad experiment.
profiling and all that sort of stuff. Now here's a bit of a moral dilemma. A lot of
Mm,
the research that he did into like the racial profiling and the twin studies and all that kind of stuff and doing operations on people with no medication so they could analyze pain and
mm,
all these ridiculously scary experiments, they actually yielded a lot of useful information
mm,
that is still used nowadays.
mm,
Like the research actually led on to further research that was more ethical. But it's
mm.
like if the information is gained in a really dangerous, evil way, and yet we still benefit from it.
It's a similar question, you know, like what do you do with the art of evil men? Like Roman Polanski, who's guilty of rape, makes really great films. They're really good films, but he's a rapist. Same
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Woody Allen, you know, and all the creepy stuff with his stepdaughter and things, you know.
yes, yeah, yeah. Because they got married, didn't they? Him and his
Oh,
stepdaughter.
it's quite
Mm.
it's very ick, the
I
whole
wouldn't
thing.
want to be left in the room on my own with him.
No, but his films are quite good. So do you not watch a good film because someone's a, like does is it critic like can you still be critical of the film without considering the author, or do you need to consider the it's a real minefield that
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to touch with a 10-foot fucking pole.
No, no, because like if I knew somebody in real life who was a rapist but a really good cook, I still wouldn't want them to make me dinner.
Do you want to know something that I
Well,
have really been struggling with recently? Just as I've been sitting and dealing
you've
with
been
all of my family
you've been
stuff.
struggling. You've been struggling with your rapist side.
I've been thinking,
Don't be,
what if,
Steve. Don't be a racist
but
or
here's the thing,
a
right?
rapist.
I have a solution. It could be the very last solution that we need, almost some kind of final one that we wouldn't need a one afterwards. um, no. So my grandfather was a horrible rapist who raped his daughters and beat his sons. And my dad would take me and my sister out to visit grandpa.
Wow. Okay.
And my sister told me that my mom had said to her to make sure that she was never alone in a room with Grandpa Paul. And my mom never came out to see Grandpa. And I didn't think that, I just didn't think anything of it. But my mom didn't come out because she didn't want to hang out with a rapist. But my dad, for some reason, thought that was a great plan.
You,
He was never anything but kind to me. He, you know, was a perfectly reasonable. He never raped my sister, but he did all of these vicious, horrible things that back in the 60s, my Aunt May went to the cops and said, my dad's raping me. And they just took her back home.
wow. Well, that's a
And
huge skeleton in your closet.
and it's like, how do I even begin to process that? Like, what do you do? What do I do with
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Because like you wouldn't voluntarily take Lewis to go visit a rapist.
Jesus Christ, if my dad raped my sister, you would be sure as fuck my grandson would never see his face, let alone
Yeah,
my granddaughter. Jesus Christ.
yeah. Fuck.
Although, to be fair, I just remembered a small detail. So, my dad, because he's clever, noped out of the whole situation when he was 12. So, when he was 12, he went off to the seminary to train to be a priest, but then he
Mhm.
left. But it was a way to go to a boarding school for free when he was a teenager, and he could escape the horror hell house that his house had become. So, maybe he was less affected by it, but still, he knew what was going on, and he still chose to bring his kids into contact with an actual monster.
That's such a hard thing, eh?
So, like,
Yeah. I guess that's again with the, with the Hitler thing is when somebody's being, you know, positive, then people don't want to look at the negative thing.
mm,
So he's done an awful, terrible thing, but your dad is probably choosing to only see the stuff that he wants to see.
yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna see him when I go back to America, and I think I need to say, what the fuck? Why did you think that was a good idea? What possibly could have pushed you to think that the rapist
Right,
was a good
yeah.
person to bring your kids to?
I think when you go to America and you go and visit your dad, I think you
Mm.
need to set up a camera and ask him all about it and then bring it back and put it on the podcast for content. Let's
All right.
talk to your, dodgy decision making father and stick it on TikTok.
Well, fuck, man. Like, because I was talking to my mom, because we were talking about, whether or not we're gonna go or not. And Rachel goes, Does Ted want us to visit?" And I pipe up and I go, "Want is a strong word for dad." And my mom's like, "Yeah, he'd like it." And I was like, "I'm sure he would like it if we came to visit, but there's never in his mind has a thought crossed that we should come visit." And again, to be fair, when he was a kid, you didn't want to seek connection with your dad. So he was doing me a favor by holding it away, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's testament to you actually that if you've had, the grandfather that was a rapist and then, all that kind of stuff, that you are very family orientated and you've got a great family unit with Rachel and Lewis. And it's like you have definitely broken that sort of generational trauma.
Well, he was like the bits that I've talked to my dad about. He said he was really concerned with breaking the violence. Like that was his big cycle. So he was never angry with us my whole life. My dad
Right.
never got angry. Um,
To the point though of was that detrimental, like to never
to the
get
point to
angry?
the point that I had to learn in my 20s how to deal with anger because I had never seen it processed, and it took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but also he had a pituitary tumor, so his hormones were all fucked up. So it's very possible he couldn't get angry. We don't know.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's nuts.
I don't think in my family that I'm aware of that there is, you know, sort of skeletons like that. Though I vaguely remember, I might have dreamt this or I might be lying, but I've got a vague memory of being told that some great grandfather in, you know, recordable history, but I can't remember how many greats, he killed his wife, my great whatever grandma. Um, he was drunk and knelt on her chest and choked her and killed her. Right. And this is in the old days with, you know, fancy calligraphy writing, and the court record, you know, or police record or whatever. So they found him not guilty. He got away with it because he was drunk and couldn't remember properly. And it's like, what a bloody patriarchal boys club is that? You go, oh, you killed your wife, but you're drunk. Ah, it's fine. It's fine. It's all right. You can't remember, can you? I think that's the only closet that I'm the only skeleton in the closet that I'm aware of in my
That's
family.
nuts. I have this ambition that I will one day turn the story of my grandfather being a rapist and my dad taking us out to see him into the stand-up comedy piece. But it's a
Definitely humor in that.
there
There's
is, but I mean,
always
to get people to come along on that specific ride is something. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, it needs to be quite a niche segue to get into that. So
It's yeah.
there was a stand-up comedy clip that I watched they've actually put on our Facebook page, and this is just to show how there is comedy in everything. And the guy says, okay, this is a dark story and it's so dark it made my therapist cry. And he said that his brother died from a heroin overdose, or as he called it, a heroin whoopsie daisy. And you know, and
Totally renamed
just
them.
say that's the only way that you can make it funny is call
A
it a whoopsie
heroin. Oh,
daisy.
oh dear.
Yeah. And then a month after that, his mum committed suicide. And that's dark. But he said that that's one hell of a way to find out that you're not the favorite child.
Oh, that's very funny.
It's very funny. I
That's
know, right?
very funny.
And that is genius comedy to get a laugh twice from a whoopsie daisy and favorite child. So there's two punchlines in that,
Mm,
and it's about your brother dying of an overdose and your mum committing suicide. Like that's quality
that's
stand up.
hard.
Yeah,
That's a hard one because it's like there's the when you're telling stories like this, people want to empathize with it, and it's you have to kind of short circuit that empathy to get to the laughter. And
yeah,
that
yeah.
that Roy Wood Jr. was talking a lot about it because his dad was kind of a scumbag, and like it's real hard trying. You tell them sad stuff, and people want to do what they think is the right thing and empathize and feel bad for you. But you're like, no, no, this is seriously, this is funny. Watch.
Yeah, yeah. It's like when I did the stand up and one of my sets is all about seizures,
Mm,
and getting up at first and saying like, hello, I'm Spaz. People are uncomfortable with that, and then you make your first couple of, you know, jokes or whatever about seizures, and people are like, mm, okay, are we allowed to laugh at this?
mm,
It's like, yeah, I'm giving you full permission to laugh at me, not necessarily all people who have seizures,
mm,
but it's all right. We can have a laugh and a joke about it. I think when you're seeing the humor in it yourself, then people are kind of relieved at the opportunity. It's like, oh, okay, it's all right. We can have a laugh about this. We don't have to be pity faces and be considerate of it. But you do
mm,
have to earn the right to bring people on that journey. It's like the guy making jokes about his brother and his mum. You wouldn't be able to make that joke at the very start of your set. You've
mm.
got to have
Yeah,
brought
you
them
need to.
with
That
you.
it's there's a specific spot for that's like not a five
Yeah.
minute one. That's not a quick thing type five.
No,
So
no.
my brother died.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you could. There is a type of humor that starts with that hitting, but then you have to switch it real quick. It's like with hecklers, you if it's near the start of your set, you have to be okay. Like, you know, hey, nice little light joke, shut them up. When you want
mm,
to get harsh and brutal, you know, like say Jimmy Carr or Steve Hofstetter, those sort of people, you have to know that the audience has got your back. if you're going to turn around and say to an audience member, you know, to a heckler, like, you can fuck off, get out, you're a dick, whatever, if you're going to be quite harsh with them, the rest of the audience has to be on your side.
I did that in the yurt once. There was a real guy fucking up, and I got like legitimately angry and like told him to fuck off and leave, and it killed the room. Like when you bring actual anger onto stage, it really like
Yeah,
flattens
yeah.
the atmosphere. You know what I'm
You
saying?
should I think you would like Steve Hofstetter. He's
I've
very
not seen
intelligent.
shows.
Hofstetter is he's very intelligent, he's very sort of social and political, but he's very, very funny.
Mm,
And I say, but you can be both. So he's intelligent, he's political, he's, you know, got great insights into society, um, but he works the crowd so well
mm,
and gets a lot of hecklers. So like he posts a lot of his crowd work, and he can destroy people. And
mm,
he's so harsh. And he goes from the funny, playful to the breaking them down, making them very much regret that they spoke up. But he also takes it right the way through to, you know, the angry and getting people kicked out
yeah,
for being dicks. But he's
mm,
always got the crowd on his side. You know,
mm,
he is an extremely professional artist
mm.
of a comedian. He's not just getting on stage and going, "Hey,
Yeah.
bumbles," you know. He's a very clever comedian. It's like he's crafted it so well. I
I
think you'd
saw
like it.
one of my there was a comic I saw recently. He was an African American guy. I can't remember his name. He was very, 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 very funny. And he had a bit at the end of his thing where he's like, you know, my stuff isn't political, but y'all are a little bit gay. Every one of you's a little bit gay. And there and like there was like three or four people males in the audience who like really switched off. And he's like, watch these three guys. And he told the story about how you're at the barber shop, and every once in a while the guy will come in to cut your hair and his dick will brush your arm. And if you were 100% not gay, you would be like, no, get that dick off me. But no, you need to get a haircut, so you just got to put up with it for a minute. So you're just like a little bit gay.
Does that count as? I suppose it'd make it a little bit gay if you turn around and give it a kiss.
Just a little bit,
That's just that's a little bit gay.
little bit,
Kissing and
little
yeah.
little bit. um Thanks so much for listening to Laugh, Cry, or Die. This has been a morning natter by two disabled spaztoids. If you're a disabled spaztoid and want to take part in the conversation, make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels at Laugh, Cry, or Die on the TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of the things. We're spamming the internet with spazes.
Thank
And
you for listening.
bye.
Bye.